All right, I think we are live. All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Gary with 214 Media. We're coming at you with another Tech Tip Tuesday episode. The only problem is we're doing it on a Wednesday. We had some technical difficulties yesterday. We're not going to talk about them, but we got them figured out. So we're currently under mandatory shelter at home, and it's really putting a cramp on our style and how we're doing business. Everybody. It's affecting everybody nationally. Again, I'm here virtually, as you can tell, with one of my great business partners, Annibal Pacheco. And please leave comments. Annibal is smart. He is wicked smart on all kinds of crazy stuff. Technical, like apps, websites. This dude is like awesome. And I'm so glad that he's on the 214 Media team and nobody else's. Anyway, we're going to go after it a little bit today, and we're going to talk a little bit deeper on the subject of Zoom meeting. Zoom meeting, a lot of people are using Zoom meeting and teleconferencing and video conferencing and all that for educational purposes, for professional purposes, and just to stay connected with their families. But there are a lot of things out there that you may or may not know about Zoom meeting, and we're just going to go ahead and cover, some best practices with setup, privacy, connection, all that type of stuff. Anyway, I'm going to hand it over to Annibal. Annibal, good morning. How are you doing, and how is the recent shelter at home treating you?
It's okay. As you can see, I'm on my usual setup over here at the office. I was sheltering in place before all this social distance started. So I don't feel too isolated.
Right.
The fact that, for those of you that don't know about my military service, on my last deployment, I spent about 18 months inside of a bunker, about 20 feet down in the ground with 100,000 sandbags around it. And I only saw daylight when I actually went to get something to eat.
That's crazy.
So that's like being in space.
I can imagine.
And you get used to it because you don't have no windows, you don't have nothing, and you just do what you got to do and survive. So I think it's a matter of being resilient and adapting and overcoming to the current situation. So I know it's hard. I know a lot of social butterflies, and if you're out there listening, you know who I'm talking to. So
yeah,
I know that's a hard thing to do, but we just got to manage. Is in the military, we got to say better safer than sorry. So
that is true.
It is for everyone's best interest to do this.
Well, what's crazy is you say you were in a bunker for that long. I was in a chemical suit for a couple of weeks, and I felt
wow.
that felt like being in a bunker too. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I know.
Kind of sheltering at home, I guess, is business as usual for a lot of people who are in the military.
And so now speaking about that, I'm just let me throw some patriotism out there.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's a Zoom technique. So for everybody who's on the video here, we're basically using a piece of software called OBS, and we're piping a Zoom meeting, which Annibal is on, through the OBS software. So that's why you're able to see all the graphics and everything that we're doing right now. And one of the cool things that he just did was he switched his background over. So you no longer see like the stuff behind him. You can see a virtual background. Anyway, Annibal, why don't you go ahead and just kind of talk about Zoom meeting, all the functions and features and everything that you want to go over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this screen over so you can go ahead and do a screen share. Yep, I see your settings window.
All right, so right now I'm in the virtual background area of Zoom, and this is where you can switch out the backgrounds. Now, obviously, this works out a lot better if you have an actual green screen behind you, as I know that Gary has one. I don't. One of the things that you can do is you can add your own backgrounds. Like, I actually got several backgrounds here that I can switch to. Now, that image has to be at least 1920 by 1080. So once you get an image and you set it up to the dimensions of 1920 by 1080, you can use that image. One of the things that I learned about this as I've been experimenting with is the fact that if you use a plain background, because as you see when I move, it kind of rips around the edges.
Yeah.
It has a lot of blackness. So if you use a black background, that minimizes that blurring and distortion, but it's still there because it's not a true green screen. Now, if you look here in the bottom, it has like a little checkbox here, and you can check I have a green screen. And then once you do that, that's when that actually happens. It gives you the actual true blending effect that you get when you're on an actual green screen. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to another one of my backgrounds. So that's basically how you do the virtual background in Zoom. Now, this feature is in your settings, and in order for you to actually access that feature, I'm going to bring over one of the other windows. Can you see that over there, Gary?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so when you're in the main Zoom application window, you're going to see this little gear icon here. When you click on that little gear icon, that brings up your settings, okay? So if you haven't tried it, I'm going to go ahead and shut it off just so you guys see how it works. You just click on that, and that brings that up. That brings up to general, and then obviously you're going to start seeing all these settings. And literally, all this will take is for anybody to actually go through all these settings. And this is what I'm going to say. I don't know if this might sound stupid or whatever, but I'm going to say it anyway. All of this is basically set up there in plain English. So you just got to go through the settings, as painfully as this might seem, and just check the ones that apply to you, and the ones that don't apply to you, or that you don't know what they do. You can always send us a message or just ask a question on the tribe or on our page, and we'll be more than glad to explain to you guys what each one of these settings is individually. Because literally we could be here for at least 2 hours if I sitting here and start going through all of the settings. Now, some of the ones that I'm going to talk about is like this one right here, for example, confirm with me when I leave a meeting. The reason why you want to do that is because the worst thing that you want happening to you is that you're in a Zoom meeting with, let's say, your colleagues or somebody in another state or whatever, and you don't have this check. And when you finish the meeting, you thought that you finished the meeting, but now your camera is still recording, your audio is still piping out, and somebody else in another place is either listening to you or peeping on you while you on your long sleeve shirt, but you're in shorts. And I'm not in shorts. I got my pants on. But
yeah, that happens all the time too. I've personally been on meetings when that's happened.
That happens all the time, and that's one of the reasons why you want to have this check. And that way, when you click on the end of the meeting, you actually gonna know that, hey, look, I am, no kidding, out of this meeting, and nobody can be like snooping on me or listening to me. A lot of people has this myth that, okay, I can cover my camera. Yes, you can cover your camera, but if your camera is like most webcams that have a built-in microphone, you cannot really cover the built-in microphone. You can muffle it like if you put a bag or something around it, but they still gonna be able to pick up all the sound, and that's a little embarrassing if something like that happens to you. Now, mind you, I'm doing all of this in a Windows computer, but the actual Zoom application for Mac is very similar to this. The windows, the settings, everything is in the same place, except that instead of stuff being over here on the right-hand side, it's more than likely over here on the left-hand side. That's one of the easiest ways to tell if you're working on a Mac or a Windows computer. Okay? Another thing is, they use dual monitors. This is important for people that has a dual monitor setup, and a lot of businesses actually set up their employees that way. You know, it's a bigger workspace for you to work out of it, and you can do more things by having two screens. That's important because you need to know where you're at on the screen. Like right now, what I'm showing you is only one of my screens, but then on the other screen, I'm actually monitoring the feed on Facebook and actually looking at everything else that is going on the page. Okay? Here's another important one. If you're a person that tends to forget stuff like I do, because I'm pretty clumsy, believe it or not, one of the things that you want to do is you want to have your invitation URL automatically copy it after you go into the meeting. And the reason for doing that is because now all you have to do is paste it into a text message, you can paste it into an email, or you can share on Facebook on a chat with somebody that you're trying to have a meeting. While we're talking about that, let's talk about limitations of Zoom as far as participation, because what Zoom allows you to do is if you want to have one-on-one meetings, like me and Gary having this meeting in live right now, we can go on all day. And Zoom is not going to actually do nothing with that. They're just going to let you stream, and they're just going to let you do your meeting. Now, once your meeting get past 2 people, there is a limit of 40 minutes, and that is up to 100 people. Then after that, you have to get one of their pay plans. And that's, you know, what they do to actually get you to buy their services. I'm going to go ahead and share another window with you. I'm going to bring it over so I can show it to you guys. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, I got you, Hannibal.
Okay. So when you create your Zoom account for you to set up, you know, Zoom meetings and things like that, this is what you get. You get your personal meeting ID, you get your Zoom address and all of that. And I just showed you that, but that's not my actual account. So don't be copying that because this is a secondary account. Okay, so I'm going to go to meetings. This is where you can actually schedule meetings online if you're doing it online. But as you got here, you can see that you can download a Chrome extension. You can start meetings from Outlook. And that's the 2 ways that you can do the meetings right now from what they got set up on their website. If you got one of their pay plans, you can also do webinars. And as you see here, these are from 100 video participants up to 10,000. This will allow people to actually go in there and have classes. Like if you're a college, this is one of the things that I used to do at one of the colleges that I worked at. And now the thing that you got to keep in mind is all of these meetings are recorded to the cloud. And let's talk about for a second about that, because the issue with that is that anything that you say in the meeting, especially on the chat window, that's one of the security and privacy issues now with Zoom. Even though you're thinking you're having, like, let's say a private chat, like if one of your customers or even yourself, if you're talking bad about somebody in the chat, you might think that nobody's going to see that. And it's true, nobody's seeing that, except that if the person that is hosting the meeting have it set up to where it records to the cloud or it records locally to their computer. Once the recording is downloaded, then it will show you all of the chats, including the private ones. So the person that is hosting the meeting, they will have access to all of it. So they will be able to see that you was talking about how big their nose is, their ears were popping out the screen, and all these other things that people talk about. Okay?
People don't do that, Hannibal.
No, I know.
Come on now.
Okay, so in here, this is where you can set up your settings for your cloud recordings or for your local recordings. You see, if you want to do all of this right here, actually keeps records of all of this. Okay, so if you're thinking that they're not keeping records of what you're actually having meetings with people about, they are. And all of these meetings and things that you do online are being recorded in their servers. And if the person hosting the meeting, as I mentioned before, is recording it, it will be recorded in their system as well. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, you see this right here where it say host video, start meetings with host video on. You see how I have this turned off? I have this turned off for a reason. The reason being that if I'm getting ready to start a meeting, I want to be starting the meeting when I'm actually ready to start the meeting. So you can still get connected, and then you can start the video once you're ready to start the meeting and showing the participants what it is. So if you're fumbling with your paperwork or whatever it is that you're doing in the office, that might be something that you want to have turned off. Now, if you know for sure that you're going to be ready to go as soon as you hit, hey, let's have the meeting, then all you have to do is just have that enabled. And here's the other thing. When you enable settings over here in the website, the next time that you log in into your Zoom app, it updates those settings automatically because the two synchronize. Okay?
Hannibal, quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So for this is all for like PC and Mac based Zoom meeting application. When you set this up and you're doing it on your device, like you're doing it on your phone or you're doing it on your tablet, do the same settings apply?
It updates automatically.
Okay.
The same principle applied, and I'm glad that you asked that. So anything that you change here in the website, and I'm gonna bring this window back over, or anything that you change here, it will automatically synchronize those settings to your mobile device or to your web interface. Whatever you set up, it will automatically change it.
Okay, that's it. That makes sense. Yeah.
Like if I change it right now, it won't change it because I'm in a meeting. But the next time, like here, for example, if we do this right here, you see how it says right here, your settings have been updated. The next time that I log off and log back on, it's going to update that setting, whether I'm in an Android phone, in an iPhone, or I'm on an iPad or an Android tablet or on a computer or a MacBook Pro. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about audio, because everybody uses Zoom, and Zoom is free up to a point, and that's what it's called a freemium model. It's a model where you get free up to a certain point, and then you get to that point and you have to pay. So what happens here is, because they got so many people logging into Zoom, I got a message the other day saying that they were going to start limiting the people that can actually call in to have a Zoom conference. So for example, if you're in a place where you don't necessarily have a webcam or a good internet connection, the best way to do the meeting is then through audio. You can still connect to a video meeting that somebody's having, but you will only be able to listen to audio. The problem with that is that it's overwhelming their servers, so they decided that only paid plans will be allowed the capability to call into meetings. So they're actually still fumbling with that. So you might get locked out and squeeze one in there, but for the most part, what they're trying to do is force people to just basically connect through their computers. So when you make that phone call, because that's another thing, a lot of people see Zoom as just like a video conference, but it's more like video conference with voice over IP.
Right.
So when you put in that meeting ID and that password, what that does is basically making a phone call like if you was in a network telephone at your office. And what it's going to do is it's going to make a point-to-point connection between the person that is setting up the meeting and the person that is on the other end waiting to have the meeting. Okay.
So now, basically what you're saying is, Annabelle, not to cut you off, but basically what you're saying is that's just basically a control measure that Zoom is putting in, because right now the networks and everything are just so saturated with what's going on nationally that they have to put those measures in place.
Absolutely, yeah. They're doing that to protect them there, and obviously because they don't want the whole system to come crashing, and also to prevent people from just hugging onto the system.
Right.
That's we kind of like the easiest way to say it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Now, this one is also important. You see how it says right here, join before host? I will definitely let you know that you need to have this disabled. The reason being is because if you set up a meeting and somebody does what is called Zoom bombing, that's an actual term. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and Google it right now, Zoom bombing. Zoom bombing is when somebody actually gets your personal meeting ID and your password, and they will either hijack your meeting, or they will actually go in there and set up the meeting like pretending they were you. Okay. So that's something that you definitely don't want, because like I said, for example, for people that is working with children or people that is working in schools and stuff like that, they had a recent incident where a school was holding a class and somebody got a hold of the meeting and the password, and they hijacked the meeting, and they had some individuals that were in not so appropriate clothing come in through the screen and hijack the meeting and do all kinds of things that were not appropriate for the audience.
Oh man, this is actually a great point right here that you're bringing up, especially with what's going on. My kids, they're at home, on Zoom meetings and everything, and I didn't even know that or think about that. So that's actually a great point that you bring up.
Yeah, so that's definitely one that you want to have on check, because you don't want the person or persons, whoever is out there, the trolls, or whoever is trying to do whatever they're trying to do to hijack your meeting. This one right here, use the personal ID. I wouldn't recommend using that either, because that's actually one of the easier ways to hijack a meeting. And then the same with this one, they use personal ID when starting an instant meeting. Now they require a password. That's definitely one that I will use. It adds an additional layer of security to your meetings. And then the requirement for a random password. Now, if you're saying, wow, this is a lot, okay, don't worry. This is being recorded so you can actually go back and watch it. And then the other thing is, once it's recorded, we can actually dissect it and make little videos specifically about what it is that we're talking about. So we will do that at a later point. Or, as I said before, if you have any questions, just get back on the chat or send us a private message. We'll be more than glad to help you guys with anything that you have questions about. I'm going to bring this up one more time, and I'm going to show you one other thing here. If you pop this up in your screen, right, and you click on schedule, okay, you can see there that you have the personal ID, or you can see here that you can set it up to generate that ID automatically, okay? Definitely use the generate automatically feature. Don't use your personal ID, because as I mentioned before, then whoever that person it is, they will have it. They require the meeting password. As you can see, that password is automatically generated, but that's not to say that you can create your own password, which is what I would recommend. And that way you add an extra layer of security, because it's not the password that Zoom is automatically creating, which, as you can see, is numbers, just numbers. Most secure password has numbers with uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and 2 special characters. So that is a secure password. This right here, I wouldn't consider secure. Then here you see where it says the video, basically the same settings that I was showing you on the web interface, as I mentioned before, they're on the actual app too. So you can set up a meeting to set up all of these settings. How do you want the meeting to go? Either to the telephone, computer audio, or both. Do you want to have a link for the Google Calendar? And then it's a little thing here that is usually overlooked. People don't pay attention, or they don't know that it's there. And this is where you have the enable join, the mute participants on entry, which I would, so people don't be in there, you know, talking before you start talking. And then this is an important one. If you want to keep records of meetings that you're having with someone, whether it be the business meetings, or if you're a teacher and you're trying to teach something, if you want to use it as a reusable learning objects, so you can use it later on in the future, then definitely hit this one, because that's going to record the meeting to your computer, whether it's a Mac or a Windows computer. Okay. So I'm going to take this out of here.
So, Annabelle, just a quick question for you. With the password setup, you're able to set up basically a persistent meeting, right? So, like if I have a scheduled meeting every morning at 9 o'clock, I could set that up and schedule that through that scheduler, right? And then so every morning it's the same password, it's the same ID number, all that information will be the same, right?
Yes, you can, but I wouldn't recommend that either. Given the current landscape of everything that is going on, as painful as this might sound, and that is the, let me put it this way, the weakest point in the internet and cybersecurity is not these systems, it's us. Because we tend to do exactly what you just said. Oh, I just set up the meeting and I forget it. I don't have to worry about setting it up. It just takes too much time, and it literally takes about 1 to 2 minutes to set all this up. Now, you can schedule a meeting. I would definitely recommend scheduling the meetings. I wouldn't necessarily schedule in the meetings and using the same ID, the same password, and all that stuff.
Okay.
The reason is you might not share it. I might not share it, but somebody's going to share it. And that's all it takes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, you know, stay in control. What you're saying is basically you stay in control, and as painful as it is, just go ahead and set up each individual meeting. Go ahead and send out the message just to protect the ID and the password. Yeah. Okay.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know, and this was 2 days ago, Zoom was in a scramble because somebody leaked out that the app was actually leaking information back to Facebook. So literally every meeting that was being held, every video conference that it was being held, all of that information was leaked back to Facebook. as far as who was participating, where they participating from, time, location, all these other things were being shared with Facebook. So Zoom said, and I'm sure they listening, that they basically stopped that. That's not the case no more. That was one of the things that they were scrambling on a couple of days ago to fix, and they supposedly got it fixed. So they're not supposedly sharing that no more. But as is the case with any technology on the internet, I will definitely recommend that you be wary or cautious about what you're actually talking on any of these systems, and anything that you're sharing here can be compromised.
Right.
Because the other thing that they basically were telling people is like, oh, these connections are encrypted from point to point. Yeah, true, but not really true, because their point-to-point encryption was happening on their end, which is a loosely translated point-to-point encryption. That's kind of like the easiest way to explain it without getting technical on it. So bottom line is they weren't as encrypted as they say they were.
Right.
So that's what I will add to that.
Hey, Annabelle, real quick, I got a couple of questions here. Can I bring you back up onto our little 2-screen here?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
All right, there we go. Now we're back to you and me. Cool. All right, everybody. So now everybody can see who's talking. All right, so we got a couple questions real quick, just coming across the comments here. Let me just see what we got. Oh, okay. Keegan was asking, what are the dimensions again for your background image?
Oh, the dimensions for the background image are 1920 by 1280.
Okay. 1920 by 1280. Cool.
So actually any image that is bigger than 1920 by 1280 will work.
Okay.
So you don't got to have those exact dimensions, but if you start with 1920 by 1280, it will fill up the screen just like it's doing right now.
Okay.
On our screen.
So I know one thing that I saw somebody doing was they were actually doing their whiteboard. So they had like a digital whiteboard, and they were writing on a tablet with the digital whiteboard, and it was coming up behind them. So they were able to basically use it as a teaching tool, as if they were standing at an actual whiteboard. So I think that tool right there is actually really cool.
Yeah, and you can do that, because obviously you got the share my screen function. I'm gonna pull something up over here, and I'm gonna show it. So just bear with me. I'm pulling it up.
Okay. You looking to do another screen share here real quick? Or are you just looking up something?
I'm gonna show it.
Okay. Let me fix you up. I've been adjusting your screens as you're moving back and forth, so trying to keep everything in frame. One of the really cool things about OBS and using other people's screens is you can adjust on the fly, and so OBS will be a whole nother thing that we talk about. Another tech tip Tuesday, or maybe even a full-blown class. I don't know. Anyway, while you're searching there, Jason asked, how do you boot people you don't want on your meeting?
Yes, what you do is, and that's a very good question, you actually remove participant, but then that's also a setting. In one of the settings, and let me bring the window back over so I can actually show that in there. I'm going to look it up over here in the settings. I'm just rearranging stuff around.
Okay. So you can boot the troublemakers.
Yes, you can boot the troublemakers, but the problem is that if they have hijacked your meeting, then you have to basically shut down the meetings.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
you have to shut down the meeting to be able to. Let me see how I said this. To be able to do that,
okay.
Once they've taken over the meeting, they basically taken over the meeting, and you're pretty much at that point lost control of the meeting.
So, but for just let's say you've got a classroom full of rowdy people or whatever, and if it's just a normal participant, you can mute them, you can turn their camera off, and you can just full out boot them out if you need to, right?
Yes, okay. You can.
I see you.
You see my Zoom settings?
I do.
Okay. So in here, all of that stuff that we're talking about, you know what I mean? All of that stuff is here, where you have the breakout rooms, the closed captioning, the save your captions, the fire and control, the identify guests, participants in the meeting, you know what I mean? How to answer group chats, and then the whiteboard. You see, like, I know when you sign in, you probably saw something that say waiting room. This is another feature that you can use to control who is actually allowed and who's not allowed. Because in that way, you'll be able to see, okay, this is somebody that's supposed to be in the meeting or that is not supposed to be in the meeting. Because in that way, you can stop them from coming in the meeting before they even get in the meeting. You know, so you're being given like a heads up that, hey, you know, this person is getting ready to come in the meeting. I don't want them to come in the meeting, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically in the settings, and then you just set it up, and then again you have the ability to do that on your tablet, and on, you know, it just transfers to all devices from your settings. Okay.
My recommendation will be for you to go in here where I'm in now on the web interface, and I don't know how good this is seen on the other side.
Actually, I'm not seeing your screen right. I see your screen share, but it's not the one that you're actually on. If you could switch your screens over.
Okay.
There you go. I see you moving around. So
do you see my web browser again, or it's not showing?
I see a screen that you have right now that's on settings. Settings is highlighted, and then meeting, and then I see host video, participants video. Is that the right one? That's one you're talking about?
No, that's not the one that I'm talking about. Hold up.
All right.
Let me change the chair.
Okay. Yeah, I see your cursor. There we go. Okay, yep. Nope, that's it. That's the right screen right there.
You see the one that say breakout room, support, and all that other stuff?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, that's the one. So you go to the in-meeting advanced. So if you're in here, and this is another recommendation, if the actual settings in the app seem like they're too much, in the website it's actually easier to change, because obviously the text is bigger, and they actually got like the little explanation below it telling you exactly what each one of the settings will do. Because this is also like, who's the person that was asking about the whiteboard?
Jay had mentioned something about the whiteboard, that you can share it.
This is where it's at, where it say allow participants to share whiteboard during a meeting.
Okay.
That's where that setting is at, and all you have to do is just enable. The other one is the annotation, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be a whiteboard. You can use screen capture software or extensions that are in Chrome or Safari or any other browser, and then it would allow you to do like in-screen annotations. So you can actually, like, if you had a pen or you're teaching a group of kids or even doing something professional with other people, you can actually go in here and enable this, and it will allow you to share your annotations, and for them to actually make annotations on screen also on the fly. Okay. The other one is this one right here, the disable, screen share. Because if you don't want people to like come in and share something that they're not supposed to be sharing, just imagine all the things that you can share.
Oh yeah,
that's another one that will prevent or secure the meeting from doing something that it's not supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Hey, and along those lines too, I know, so, you're talking about not sharing screens and, things that you don't want to share. So what tips do you have if you are sharing your screen for like privacy reasons? Like you don't want your pop-ups and like people's names to be popping up all over the place, and, maybe an email address or something is exposed online. So what do you recommend for, just kind of keeping your general screen privacy clean,
absolutely.
if you will?
So one of the things that you can do is, you see how I have this screen where everything is blank, right? You don't see nothing in there.
Right. Yeah. I don't see your start bar or anything like that.
Exactly. So most people, what they do is they just have everything in their desktop, because that's normally how we have got used to over the years to have stuff on our computers. So one of the things, and that's a very good question, Gary, because one of the things that I recommend people do is right before you start your meeting, what you can do is I know that you can do this on a Mac too, but you can go in Windows and you can create a folder, right? And you see how that folder that I just brought over, it said desk one, right? So inside that folder, I have everything that was on my desktop before I started this meeting. So that's one way that you can sanitize your screen, kind of make it, I'm not trying to be funny now, so don't take this personal, people. You can sanitize it against the virus. So
it's relative to the times.
It's like practicing social distancing digitally with your computers.
There you go.
So that will put some distance between your privy documents that people is not supposed to have access to, or that you don't want people to see, and the things that you're actually wanting to share. So yes, that's a very good question, and that's what I would recommend.
Right. So definitely sterilize.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you only have one screen, that's what I will most certainly recommend that you do. If you do have two screens, like I have two screens, there's a couple things. Like most people, they probably don't know this, but if you grab this in Chrome, you can literally hide all your extensions, so nobody can see which extensions you're using. The other thing you can do is you can go here in settings, actually here in the bookmarks, and you can uncheck the bookmark. So now they cannot see your bookmarks and they cannot see your extensions.
That's a good idea.
I don't have nothing in there that is classified or secret, so I'm not worrying about people seeing.
Well, I hope you don't.
No, I don't. So because everything that I'm using is things that they could be using.
Right. Yeah. So that brings up a pretty good point. Maybe what we ought to do then is make like a checklist. So kind of like a pre-flight checklist. Like anytime we'd go out on, operation or mission or whatever, we'd always have a checklist. And maybe what we should do is produce a checklist based off of what you're talking about, and then kind of drop that into like, if people want it, they can, email us or whatever, and we can send it out to them. So basically kind of like a pre-meeting checklist that covers down on sterilizing your screen and all the security functions and all that other stuff. What do you think?
I said that's a very good idea.
All right.
We can most certainly do that, and I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate that.
Yeah. Just put together like a solid checklist. That way, just the little things, like turning off your Chrome extensions. I'm glad you said that, because I don't ever think about turning off all of that, all the shortcuts and all that stuff too. So, and and in reality, it's nobody's business what my folder stream is or whatever.
Absolutely. No, well, and the thing is that, especially if you're doing video capture for education, one of the things, and I see these on YouTube all the time, it's tons of videos on YouTube, obviously, but a lot of people do screen captures and they capture all that stuff in their videos. So
right.
Most definitely at a minimum, definitely hide your bookmark toolbar and, obviously, collapse all your extensions so they're not actually being captured as you're capturing your screen.
Right.
So now I know my voice is giving out now. One of the things that I know you and I talked that we were supposed to talk about yesterday was Global World Backup Day. So that's another thing that I wanted to remind people about, because obviously when you're doing all these meetings and you're connecting, as we're getting more and more connected with other people, we don't know how long this is going to be. One of the things that the bad guys have figured out is through these meeting invitations and sharing emails and all of that, in using Zoom, they have figured out how to inject malware into these links.
Interesting.
So you can get a different kind of virus, and one that then you will have to call somebody to, remove, or actually pay somebody to have your stuff get back up to speed and working. So I will definitely recommend, I cannot say it enough, is backup. So the purpose of that is so you can have at least 3 copies of whatever you think it is that you don't want to lose. So make a copy on a thumb drive. If you're still using CD burners or DVD burners, burn something to a DVD or a CD. Back up some other stuff to Google Drive. If you're using Dropbox, back up some other stuff to Dropbox and things like that. So you can have multiple copies of what it is that you want to save.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So,
Well, we got a lot of
there it is.
backing up to do. we have at least a truckload of data.
Absolutely.
Let me take a look here real quick on the phone and see if I've got any more questions. Right now, I don't have any questions coming in from comments, but I do have one more question for you. Do you have anything that has to do with connectivity? Any points for connectivity, or how to make your connection a little bit better when it comes to your Zoom meeting?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that you asked about that, right?
Seeing as how we had issues yesterday that I finally got solved after years of having problems. Years, people, years.
All right. So
I listened to the wrong person. And then finally listened to the right person.
Well, it's a good thing that you know me, Gary.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, people go out there and they tell you all kinds of things like, have your router in the lowest point in your house, have it set up in the highest point. So depending on who you're talking to, it's going to be a different answer. And the reason for that is because there is a different Wi-Fi connection for every router, depending on how your house is built, the kind of materials that are in your house, how much metal is around your house, and all these other things that affect Wi-Fi signals. The true about this is that depending on where your router is set up and how many devices are connected to your router, that's going to affect your connectivity. And especially if you're doing video, what's going to happen is you're going to start dropping packets. And
Right.
That's where you start having what is called buffering, where the signal goes like, you know what I said, Annabelle, and stuff like that. So what you want to do is have anything that is metal or stuff that has a lot of metal, remove it from being around where your Wi-Fi router is. That's definitely one of the things that you want to do if you are connected in Wi-Fi. For the most part, I will not recommend doing any kind of video conferencing on Wi-Fi because of that same thing. You can drop packets and buffering and all that stuff. So if that's your last resort, yeah, go for it. But if you could, definitely have your laptop or your computer connected to a hardwire connection so you can get the best connection possible. Another thing that could be interfering with your Wi-Fi connection, and this is something that I've seen with people that I have talked to in the past recently, is camera system. Whether it is a Ring camera system, Arlo camera system, or one of those camera systems that you can buy that have a DVR recording to it, that's another thing that will make your connection drop, because you got to remember those cameras are actually pinging your router, meaning connecting to your router at all times. So they require like a steady connection in order for you to be able to see the image on your app, or if you have a monitor to see all of your cameras at one time. That is going to actually make your connection drop. So if you're trying to do the cameras and your Wi-Fi connection for your video conferencing at the same time, it's not going to work really well. And you're going to start having the buffering issues, or you might even drop the connection completely.
Which is exactly what we were having yesterday with, I'm the one who's running the stream, and definitely the one who's running the stream better have the strongest connection. That way, running the meeting or running a stream like what we've got going on here or anything, So definitely, I know for me, my router was in the basement, and as I was looking up, I'm seeing like foil, vapor barrier and, all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, this has got to be doing something. As soon as I blasted a hole in the floor, about that big, and got the connection up through the floor and got the router upstairs, I'm getting what I'm paying for.
Yes,
I'm finally getting what I'm paying for. And wired connection too. I mean, I'm wired in right now, and I'm not noticing anything. I'm watching all the data that OBS applies, and we're not dropping packets, and we're not slowing down at all. So
yes, and you bring up another good point, paying what you're getting for. And that is, here, let me share my screen one more time.
Okay.
I'm going to bring something up, because just in case you don't know, there is a way that you can test your connection to see that you are actually getting what you supposedly say you're getting.
Which,
So you go to
again,
this web-
this should be part of that checklist we were talking about.
Right. So
Right.
you can go to this website. It's called speedtest.net, and it automatically, gets your connection, who you got your connection with. It pings your IP address. Don't worry about it. I'm on a VPN, so that's not my real IP address. And then you hit go. So, as I was mentioning before, it gives you the IP address. It gives you who your internet provider is. And then you hit go. And that will test your system. That will test your connection. It will actually tell you, what is your download connection, what is your upload connection in megabytes per second. So you already know what you're paying for from your provider. And if you're not getting these numbers, I will definitely give them a call and talk to them. It's several things that could be affecting your connection. One of them could be your router just recently got hit by a storm, or a power surge and something is wrong inside of it. The connection needs to be reset, or it could be something else inside your house that is sucking up all your bandwidth. So, or that is not allowing your router to perform, at its peak. But as you can see, I did the test. I got plenty of upload, plenty of download, and you still see us talking and doing everything else. And that's what you want, especially because people pay a lot of money for this. So you definitely should be getting what you pay for.
Absolutely. And I discovered that. Hey, we got one more question. How many megs would you recommend for streaming?
For streaming, at a minimum, you got to have 10 megabytes per second. At a minimum, 10 megabytes per second.
Now, is that down or up?
Down and up. Both.
Okay, down and up. All right.
Because remember, when you're streaming, your connection is actually pulling from the server that you're pulling from, but it's also sending data back.
Right.
That's how the connection, the connection goes both ways. So you definitely need to have that connectivity. And the reason why I say 10 megs is because anything below that is going to be standard definition. So in order for you to have a true 720p, which is what's considered high definition, you need to have at least 10 megs. So 10 megs and higher, you're going to have the high definition, very crisp image, video image in your TV or in your computer or whatever it is that you're looking at the video on. And you shouldn't be dropping any packets, you know.
And that also goes with
go ahead.
That also goes with how complicated your how complicated things are getting. Because yesterday, we noticed that we had a video we were running in the background, and it was just chewing up CPU power, and then it was also chewing up bandwidth. So it also depends on how much you're trying to stream and broadcast to, your video and your audio.
Well, and that's another reason why I recommend 10 megs, because realistically, out of those 10 megs, you're probably going to need about 5 for the high definition. But then if your computer is connected, if you have a smart TV in your house, that's connected. If you have a smart thermostat in your house, that's connected. So when you start adding all that other, Internet of Things devices, what you hear people talking about IoT, all of that is sucking up bandwidth from your connection.
It's kind of like having a glass. It's like having a glass of water and then throwing a bunch of straws in it, and everybody drinking from the straws. Everybody's taking something out of that glass of water.
There you go. Yeah, that's a really good analogy there.
Whoa, there we go. All right, cool. All right, well, hey, this has been an amazing Tech Tip Tuesday on a Wednesday. On a Wednesday, yeah. We've been going at it now for about 52 minutes, so a lot of great information.
I didn't even know that we were talking that long.
This one was a good one. I really, the other tech tips are about 2 minutes in length, and this one we gave you an extra 50 minutes. So, but being able to demonstrate and show the screens and kind of show off some of the capabilities of things that you're capable of doing is really important for us right now. That's kind of the value that we're trying to provide. As best we can, because we know that everybody's in a tight spot right now, especially professionally, and going through education. Education's going through a learning and growing process too. So anything that we can do to help demonstrate or troubleshoot or whatever, we're here and we're ready to help whoever needs any kind of help when it comes to, you know, digital marketing, photography, videography, streaming, things like that. Obviously, website, technical, everything that you can think of when it comes to digital marketing, etc. We're here, and if you need anything, just let us know. And there goes Annabelle Change in the background again,
Hey,
like he's in Florida.
It's Puerto Rico, baby.
Oh, Puerto Rico. There you go. Quarantined in Puerto Rico. Oh, okay. I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so I figured, Annabelle, if you got anything else, I mean, you got any other tips?
I don't have any
tidbits of
the same
information?
things you already said. If somebody has questions or they feel like they need help, just get in contact with us. We'll be more than glad to help them.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you need to get in contact with any of us, if you want to do it via email, you don't want to ask your question publicly in a comment, you know, Annabelle at 214media.com, Gary at 214media.com, Jason at 214media.com. All right, you can hit us up. You can DM us on any of the platforms that you're watching this on, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Hit us up, and we will do our best to get you an answer as quickly as possible. But anyway, we appreciate everybody who sat through this, which is awesome. So this would be what? Evergreen content, so we can break it down into micro content and all that other cool stuff that people should be doing as marketing. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode. Anyway, you guys have a great one. We will catch up with y'all later, and I'm going to stop this stream and let everybody get back to work. Anyway, you guys have a great one. Remember, it's not about us. It's about our mission, and our mission is always your success. Cheers, everybody.